Well, many European countries are seeing record high January temperatures as unseasonably warm weather sweeps across the continent. Scientists are warning that 2023 is likely to bring an increase in extreme weather events around the world due to human-induced climate change. DW's climate reporter Tim Schoenberg has this outlook for the year ahead.
Devastating floods, droughts, apocalyptic storms and rising sea levels. The past year in the US, Pakistan, Italy and the Horn of Africa was just the beginning.
The scientists are able to give an attribution very quickly. The Pakistan flood, they gave an attribution 50% more flood because of human-induced climate change. The Hurricane Ian that hit Florida, they said 30% more flooding, rainfall because of climate change. Okay, so we now have a climate change element to all these disasters. There's no zero climate change disaster left anymore.
The energy crisis fueled by the Russian invasion of Ukraine will continue to play a major role in terms of how quickly countries reduce their emissions in the long run. There are two main developments. The first is the exploration of new gas and oil fields. New pipelines, refineries and LNG terminals are being built, so nations no longer have to depend on Russian fossil fuels. The second and even bigger trend, major investments in solar and wind power and hydrogen capacities, particularly in the US, the EU, China and India.
Everybody now has understood that banking on cheap gas is not a good idea. One needs to have a different plan, and the plan is to save energy and to install more renewable energy. So you have two competing trends, and the main question for me is which one wins?
One important step forward that we may see in 2023 is a deal between the G7 countries and India, along the lines of an agreement made with South Africa last year. Under the Just Transition Partnership, the US, Germany, France, the EU and the UK agreed to provide South Africa with billions in financing to speed up its coal phase-out plans. A deal of this kind with the world's fifth largest economy, India, would accelerate its switch to renewables and potentially represent a big move towards climate justice and the curbing of global warming.
And if a deal for a country which has a coal fleet 5 times or it's a bigger economy were to emerge, it sort of ushers in a new paradigm of climate discussions which can actually keep up with the pace needed.
The next United Nations Climate Conference, COP28, is due to take place in the United Arab Emirates at the end of the year. Scientists agree that we cannot afford to miss any more opportunities when it comes to stopping climate change. Every year counts.
Well, Matika Mwenda is joining me now, Executive Director and co-founder of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance in Nairobi, Kenya. Good to have you with us. After such a brutally hard 2022 in terms of what the climate delivered, what are you expecting or braced for in 2023?
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to speak to your audience during this new year. To us in Africa and as Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, there is no really significant change. The change of date does not mean that there is anything which will change. So the progression in terms of warming, extreme weather, and weather events, we expect everything to continue just the way it was last year. And these are observable even in the Horn of Africa where we come from, where the dry spells, the extreme weather, famine, droughts, and the flash floods actually have not rescinded. So we expect the whole thing to continue, and actually the projections are not very positive in terms of the cost of living crisis, the energy crisis, the food situation is going to worsen, and so forth. So we expect really a bad year, if I may say.
Sure. If we could isolate just one of those problems of the many you lay out, scarcity of water, is there a risk that a lack of water eventually becomes a trigger for armed conflict?
Certainly. If you see, I just want to give you an illustration to just where I come from. My community is a farming community, and we bond a pastoralist community. Some of the conflict which we are experiencing just at the village level, just at community level, the community is a front line of climate crisis, is that competition, the war, the control on water points. So that's at a very, very minute level. But it then come at again in where we are in the Horn of Africa, where a country like Ethiopia, with the source of River Nile, which is just causing a conflict with the neighboring country, which relies on it, Egypt and Sudan. And it is actually almost causing commotion, war, because of the dam which they are establishing in Ethiopia. And so we are seeing more and more conflicts based on the diminishing resources, that is water. And this is actually very obvious in what we are seeing. And we're happy during the COP27, for the first time, we found water was really came into discussion in some of the nature-based solutions, and some of the adaptation sectors, which we need to look into as we move to address climate crisis, particularly in Africa.
Mikita Nwenda, Executive Director and the co-founder of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance in Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks so much for your time.
Let's look at this with our environment reporter, Louise Osborne. Welcome, Louise. So this all looks very, very gloomy in this new year.
Yeah, it's easy to see it that way, especially with the record high temperatures that we've already seen that you were talking about earlier this year. But there is hope, actually. I mean, we have the new Brazilian president now who has promised to put in measures to protect the Amazon, which is a major carbon sink and can help us with dealing with climate change. He's also promised zero deforestation by 2030, so we'll see what happens. And obviously, although the energy crisis is still biting and it's difficult, there is the hope that that will push us further towards renewable energy, which is positive.
OK, so that all sounds like mitigation. That all sounds like slowing down this inexorable progress towards doom and destruction. Is there anything else that we can do to actually pull back from the brink?
Well, I mean, sadly, emissions rose in 2022 again to record levels, and it looks like we're not going to lower them in 2023. Even if we do cut emissions, there is the greenhouse gases that are already there that are still going to cause higher temperatures. But we're hoping, or scientists hope, that we will still be able to curb some of that. So we just have to see what happens and how we can look at reducing our carbon emissions. OK, so does that mean that we are likely to see more of the demonstrations that we've seen over the last few years, and even the more sort of radical actions that have been taken on climate change? So, interestingly, Extinction Rebellion has said that it's going to pull back from those kinds of actions. Instead, they are looking to get more people involved rather than taking radical actions that kind of push people away. Saying that, that's not going to be an end to these radical actions. I mean, we're already seeing in Germany, obviously, the protests taking place in Lützerath, where people are coming against the police to try to stop the expansion of a coal mine. And then there are other groups like Just Stop Oil and Last Generation that have also said that they are willing to take the extra penalties of regardless of the fines and the extra detention time that they might have, to make sure that this issue really gets the attention that it arguably needs.
Thank you for that. Louise Osborne, Environment Reporter. Thank you.
In Central Europe, the impact of global warming isn't felt as strongly as elsewhere in the world, but record temperatures in a number of European countries are making the effects ever clearer. Poland saw temperatures reach 19 degrees Celsius on New Year's Day. That was one of 9 countries to set new national records. In Romania's capital, Bucharest, it felt like springtime, with thermometers hitting 20 degrees. The balmy conditions have caused havoc in the winter tourism industry, however, with ski resorts struggling with a lack of snow.
It looks like a summer trip up the mountain, but this is January in Europe. Green grass blankets hills that should be covered in snow right now, and ski slopes have been confined to a narrow lane. It's really weird. Everything is green left and right of the slope. Temperatures of up to 10 degrees Celsius have caused the last snow on these slopes to melt. And what little snow you see here didn't fall from the sky.
We had fresh natural snow in Zell am See, about 40 centimeters. This would be far too little, so we filled it out with artificial snow. Because of that, we've coped well.
The last significant snowfall in the area was at the start of December. Ski slope operators are feeling the pinch.
It's the main season. We should be hosting up to 4,000 guests in the area, but now there's only half of the usual guests.
Switzerland and France have also been feeling the heat. Numerous slopes remain closed over the festive season, forcing holidaymakers to consider taking up alternative sporting activities.
We hear the news about global warming. I don't know. But the fact is that we can't deny it.
Fog and rain instead of snow. While by no means comparable to the humanitarian disasters caused by global warming around the world, the current state of European ski slopes is yet another sign that the climate emergency affects all of us.